Here's a quick example of how to run multiple functions using a single button or form component. Let's go ahead and add our first component. I'm going to drag in our table and we'll choose our data. So I'll go ahead and grab data from our Postgres database and I'm looking for our user account information. Okay, so now let's go ahead and clean up some of the fields here. I'm going to hide some things that are not relevant for this use case. Let's go ahead and sort this table by creating it. And let's add a filter here, let's only look for user accounts where the onboarding status is equal to pending. So these are now all pending accounts here. Next, let's add a button to this table. So I'm going to go ahead and go to components and look for the button component here. Now we're going to associate two functions to this button. So we'll go ahead and choose our first one. First one will be MailChimp. So our goal here is to first add the user that is pending onboarding to our MailChimp audience so that they can start receiving emails. Now let's name this component onboard user. And let's go ahead and add a label for this button. And button text, let's just say onboard user. Now you'll notice that there are three fields here. So these three fields are required for the MailChimp function. So we gotta provide a user email, first name, and last name. So all that data is present here in the table. So let's go ahead and just grab them from each row. So I'm gonna choose to use a value from a component and choose this row's email. Same thing with first name. I'm going to set a value from a component, grab this row's first name, and same thing with the last name. Use a value from a component, use this row's last name. Okay, so now that's all set up, let's go ahead and add our second function. This time I'm going to choose a function from our Zendesk account. And we're going to go ahead and choose the create to user function. So this function will actually add these users to our Zendesk account. Now you'll notice that this function requires a name as well as an email. Now the thing with the name is that I need the full name, but there's no full name in this table. But I do know actually that this first function, the MailChimp function, will actually return the full name when it's executed. So what I can do actually is, instead of binding to a value in here in this table, I'm going to go ahead and say use a value from a component, but instead bind to this button's last execution result, and then the add to MailChimp audience function, which is the first function that I was talking about. And then these are all of the fields that are essentially returned when this first function is run. So I'm going to look for full name. Great. And then I'll go ahead and also grab the email, which is present here. So I'm just going to grab it from a component and grab it from this row's email field. So now we're all set. This button, when clicked, will go ahead and execute two functions, add this user to MailChimp, as well as add them to Zendesk. Now, one thing to also note is that the order of the functions that you add does matter if you are using the returning value of the first function in the second function, as I showed you guys. All right, let's go ahead and publish this real quick. And there you go. So now I have this app. I can go ahead and onboard a user. And they've now been added to both MailChimp as well as Zendesk.